This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, and today we're going to be talking about two of my favorite assets, gold and silver. Namely, not only because they're things that you can physically hold in your hands, but they've also been a tried, tested, and true store of value over the years, and it's an incredibly good hedge against the coming dollar crash, which we here at Press for Truth have been talking about for quite some time, pointing out the fact that this is an inevitability. It's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when. So how you protect yourself and your assets is ultimately your responsibility. And joining us on the line today to actually help us break down just how to do that and how he managed to do that is Keith Neumeyer of First Mining Finance, firstminingfinance.com. Keith, thanks so much for joining us today and taking some time to speak with us. I want to get your views on your mining bank. You guys have acquired a lot of precious metals in a very cool way, and I want to get your thoughts on gold and silver as a store of value. But before we get into that, maybe you can start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself. First Mining Finance is not your first company, so how did you first get involved in the precious metal space?
Well, as a kid, I always liked rocks, and I started working for the financial community in the 80s, and I worked for three Canadian national banks from mid-80s, 84 to 89, and I actually worked on the floor of the stock exchange as a pro trader. I arbitraged equities between Montreal and Vancouver and Toronto and the NASDAQ. And I did fairly well. It was a lot of fun, and I was a young guy at the time, and then when technology changed and the exchange went electronic in Canada, I ended up starting working for publicly traded companies in the corporate development and investor relations side, and that was in 89, 90, and then in 92, I've put together my first company, which was called First Quantum Minerals. And the team, including myself, collectively, we went out and started acquiring copper assets in Africa and Central Africa, Zambia and the Congo and Zimbabwe. And that was interesting, and built a pretty impressive company. Today, it's I don't actually know First Quantum's market cap off the top of my head, but it's in the multi-billion-dollar market cap. It's one of the largest copper companies in the world, and I was part of that. I was the president for up until 97, and I remained on the board till 2000. Then I put the First Majestic Silver together in 2002 because of my view on silver, and now we're 2017. We're in our 15th year of business, and I've been running the company as CEO from its beginnings to date, and that's my full-time job. But then I put First Mining together back in 2015 because of the valuations that I was seeing in the mining sector. When in my early days at First Quantum and later, in First Majestic, I was buying assets with no competition, and people were wondering why the heck I was buying old Mexican silver mines. But I had a vision, and obviously it was successful, and we built one of the largest, at least the purest silver company in the world, and using the market valuations in 2015 and 2016, we were able to set out on a path whereby we acquired 13 companies over a space of about 15 months, and of those companies, there was like 6 of them, I think it was, that was in our top 10 acquisition list, because my total technical team put together a whole list of assets that they felt were, likely mines. We didn't want to buy just a bunch of moose pasture or anything like that. We wanted to buy projects that actually would turn into mines ultimately. So these were assets that had proven resources, and we felt could be developed over time. And we amazingly we put together our portfolio of over 12 million ounces of gold, which I believe have upside as well, that will be proven out over time. through exploration. And First Mining was originally designed as a mineral bank, whereby it really had little interest in drilling holes. But today, now it's a completely different animal. We've First Mining Finance has become a development company, and very much focused on developing the core assets into producing mines. It takes time, and it might take partners as well. We're not opposed to that, but we've really become a development company versus kind of a holding company as originally we anticipated.
Well, I think it's a brilliant model because it doesn't really make sense to mine at this point when it costs more to do the mining than what the end product may end up be selling at today's price. So there's no financial incentive there. So maybe you could walk us through a little bit of that 16-month track record where you've had incredible progression. What are some of the biggest steps, exciting moves that happened for you during that 16 months?
Well, the company went public in April 2015, and I can tell you it was pretty tough to get it public. I was raising that early seed capital, back in 2014, 2015. It was at the depths of the market, and it was pretty tough. But we finally got it public in April 2015, and the first transaction we did was a hostile deal. Very unusual. Most transactions are done friendly. This is one of the very few hostile deals that actually worked, and we're very happy with that. That was getting our Hope project, which has over 1 million ounces of gold, very good grades, and that kind of kicked the company off, and that kind of lit up the screens a little bit. People started saying, "Oh, who's this First Mining?" And then after that, we quickly pulled off another transaction whereby we bought 2 companies in a 3-way deal. And then we did multiple other transactions over the next, 10 or 12 months, and successfully buying, 5, very, very exciting gold development projects in Canada, and as well as other tier 2 and tier 3 type projects, throughout the Americas.
Well, last I checked, isn't FF is trading on the TSX for around 52 cents? Isn't that pretty on the cheap? I mean, it seems remarkably low for something with so much momentum.
Yeah, it's the market. We can't control the market, obviously. There's no institutions in this market at all, which is causing a lot of these companies to be trading on sale. And I like buying stocks on sale, quite frankly. I actually bought a couple 100,000 shares of First Mining last week. I put a bid in the stock today. I don't think I bought any, but I actually did put a bid in. So maybe over the next couple of days I'll get that filled. But I don't mind buying the stock at these prices. I'm surprised where it's trading, mind you. It shouldn't, quite frankly, be trading at these kinds of prices, but it is. It's a fact of life. And Springpole, which is our key project, it has 5 million ounces of gold. It's one of the largest development projects in North America. And once it's built, over the next few years, we expect, according to the current numbers, should produce somewhere around 300,000 ounces of gold annually, which is pretty big. That's a big mine. That's and in the preliminary economic assessment that was announced just a few weeks ago as an NPV value or net asset value of over $1 billion, and that's on an undiscounted basis. But on a discounted basis, it's about $800 million US dollars. That's at $1,300 gold, and it's got an internal rate of return north of 25%. These are big numbers, and it's a very, very exciting project. And our market cap is a quarter of the value of one of our assets.
Wow. Well, when it comes to buying, recently I've noticed Ray Dalio, one of the top investors in the world, has just increased his gold holdings by around, I think it's 575% in his GLD holdings, becoming the 8th largest holder in the world. So what can you say about his phenomenal position he's just recently taken, and is that going to create any kind of momentum here to get other people flooding into this space?
Well, if I ever had the chance to talk to him, I would tell him not to buy GLD. it's problematic in itself. If a GLD even owns the gold, but I highly doubt that they do. But nevertheless, you'd be better off buying a good gold miner. Even one of the big gold miners, because they're gonna, when gold actually starts to move, the miners will far outpace the gold itself or the metal itself. And whether it's silver in the case of First Majestic Silver, which is the company I'm the CEO of, obviously, the beta on that stock, historically over the last 15 years is anywhere from 2 to 3 times. So, that works on the downside too. When silver's dropping, obviously hurts the stock quite a lot. But when silver is moving higher, for every dollar move in silver price, the stock can go up, a couple of bucks, and then sometimes even more than that. So, in the case of a good gold company, even in the case of First Mining Finance, they tend to move a lot more than the price of gold itself.
Well, as somebody who has a good understanding of silver, I want to get your views on what a silver may look like in a post-dollar crash. I mean, I know it's a gold versus silver is at around 77-to-1 ratio, and apparently usually when this happens, both of these metals outperform. In fact, stocks outperform both of these metals. So what do you see happening with silver in the scenario of a crash of the dollar?
Well, it's everything priced in dollars obviously is going to go up. That's the natural or obvious thing that will occur. But I think silver will outperform any other metal. And then my thesis on silver, and the reason why I put together a silver company back in 2002, 2003, was my view on silver. The fundamentals for the metal are absolutely astounding. I love gold, and then that's why I put together First Mining Finance, because I'm a bull on gold as well. But we're mining as an industry worldwide 9 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold, and you just said yourself the trading ratio is about 75 or 77 or whatever it is today. And that kind of ratio just simply cannot last. When you're mining 9 to 1, you have to go to the mean, and it's just a matter of time. The market is not waking up to the fact, because for whatever reason, silver is looked at as a poor man's gold, but silver is a very strategic metal, and the devices that we're communicating on right now require silver, and just simply couldn't happen without silver. And many of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis in our lives to make ourselves comfortable, and the many things that we need to do going forward, getting off oil and gas and electric cars and robotics and fuel cell cars and all the things that we're doing as a human race to go green, requires a ton of silver, and that's why I'm such a bull on silver. So even though I think with all the liquidity and all the debt in the world that gold has to go a lot higher, silver I still believe will outperform gold over this next few years.
And what are your thoughts on good old-fashioned fiat? I mean, the Fed is having insane inflation rates rising, and I'm wondering, is this going to potentially lead to rate hikes coming from the Fed?
Yeah, I don't think interest rates can go much higher, quite honestly. I think that this whole view in the marketplace that interest rates are going to normalize and go back to 4 or 5%, I think is completely false. I think interest rates have to go lower in order for the governments to survive, because a higher interest rates and rate environment is going to be the governments that are going to hurt more than anyone, because that's where all the debt is. The corporations themselves have done pretty good in righting their ships, particularly in the mining sector. A lot of the balance sheets in many corporations are much stronger than they were a decade ago. But yet the government's balance sheet, it's like all the debt's been transferred to the governments, and it's them that's going to hurt the most, as I said. So I don't think interest rates are going to go much higher. So quite frankly, I think they're going to go a lot lower. But I think that one thing, I'm a big believer what Jim Rickard says, And I'm at a conference right now in San Francisco, and I was listening to him this morning. And I've heard him say the same thing many times. It's not like it's anything new, but I think that in order to right the ship and convert, and get off, the current financial system that we're in, and of course the crash of fiat, we're going to have to go into some kind of gold-backed currency where the governments have to value the gold at X number, pick a number of multi-thousands of dollars, in order to have enough value on their balance sheets in order for them to survive or pay off their debts. And I think that's why we're seeing many of the governments around the world accumulate gold, some quietly and others not as quietly, like Russia, for example, puts out monthly numbers, but China and other governments tend to be quite shy when they put out their numbers. But I think there's central banks around the world accumulating gold right now, and I think the jig is up. I think there's something going on that they're familiar with, they're not talking about, but as time passes, the general population will learn more about it, and I think gold prices will start to move, and then eventually the system will change.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And for the individual to get into this, especially now when it's such a good time, what sort of advice might you have, just in closing, for people who are just learning about this kind of space now and are seeing some of the things going on around the world, in the United States, Russia, China, and starting to think, what, maybe I ought to protect myself a little better than I currently am. What sort of words of advice might you have for those people who are not exactly sure how to do this?
Well, definitely, when it comes to mining, I'm very, comfortable with it, and I'm heavily invested in the mining sector. In a variety of different companies and actually a variety of different metals. What I see going forward is a huge demand for metals to accomplish what I've already spoken of, going green and replacing the electrical grid and so on and so forth, and just evolution of the human race to do things a lot more effectively or efficiently than we're currently doing them. And that going to take a ton of copper, silver, zinc. These are metals that people should have in their portfolios. But again, I'm an expert in the mining sector. My risk tolerance is probably somewhat greater than others. This is a very risky industry, and it's people that are investing in this sector need to be quite cautious. They have to do their due diligence. They should, be investing if they decide to make investments. They should, follow management teams that have proven track records and that have created wealth in the past, that have created successful companies in the past, and so on and so forth. Because if you follow those types of groups, you tend to at least reduce your risk, as far as I'm concerned. But on the physical front, you should always have some physical silver and some physical gold, regardless if you decide to buy the miners or not, because maybe that's simply too risky for some people. But definitely having gold and silver exposure in some form as part of your holdings.
Well, I think that's fantastic advice, and in fact, I think you are one of these people that people out there ought to be paying attention to moving forward. So why don't you let us know where people can learn more from you? What are the websites, and do you have a Twitter where people can follow you?
I do have Twitter, just Keith _Neumeyer. I don't do a ton of tweets, but maybe one a week or one every 2 weeks or something like that. But of course, the First Mining Finance has a website, just simply firstminingfinance.com. First Majestic has a website, firstmajestic.com. You'll go on to the websites if you care. You'll see both companies have their corporate presentations on the websites, which are quite useful information. The company in a summary format, and of course, there's the 1-800 numbers for both of those companies. And your people that want to do their due diligence and look at these companies a little more deeper, feel free to phone that number. And Derek Iwanaka at First Mining is available, and Todd Anthony at First Majestic is also available to answer any questions.
Awesome. Well, I strongly encourage the viewers at home to do so. We're going to have all those links in the description below. Once again, Keith, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Great. Well, it's great talking to you as well. Thank you.